now take great pleasure in welcoming our eminent speakers for the session on educating for social change. I would like to invite Ms. Meira Kumar, Ms. Yrene Tamayo, and Ms. Zamantungwa Khumalo on stage, please. I would like to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Meira Kumar. Ms. Meira Kumar is an Indian politician and 5-time Member of Parliament, as well as the first woman Speaker of the Lok Sabha. She has also served as a Cabinet Minister in the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. I would like Ms. Meira Kumar to come up and say a few words.
A very good evening to all of you. Friends, eminent personalities, friends at the dais. It's an important gathering, very influential, very knowledgeable, and also very committed. I want to begin with leadership. Any formal, informal setup or group of people need leaders, whether temporarily or permanent in nature. But a complex society like ours needs leadership at a much larger scale. And today I would, together with you, like to dwell on what kind of leadership we should have. Now, we should begin by thinking of the attributes of a leader. According to me, the most important attribute of a leader should be that he or she should be a dreamer of dreams. Must dream, must have a large dream. A dream which would probably take a lifetime to realize, or even go beyond that. My father worked for a dream. It took him his entire life. I'm working for the same dream, but I'm nowhere near the goal. I can see. In fact, I can identify with you because I can see in your eyes the same dream. We share the same dream. We have a partnership in dream. They say blood is thicker than water. The strongest relationship is that of blood. But according to me, the strongest bond is that of partnership of dreams. When you're working, when you're committed to the same goal. And if I can make out, we are. We want to transform the society. We want to move ahead forward, work for a better tomorrow, create a more egalitarian setup, a classless, casteless society where people can live with their rights and human dignity. That's the baseline. But we can't just keep on luxuriating. A leader cannot just keep on luxuriating in the dream, however fantastic it might be. Your dream must be acceptable to a very wide section of the society. Acceptability of your dream, of a leader's dream, is very important. And then you should be able to carry people with you. Don't go so far ahead that people are left far behind. Just go a step ahead. But do go ahead, don't step back, don't let them pull you back. Because I've seen it very often that to please their followers or to keep their flock together, sometimes the leaders give up leading and become followers of their own followers. That's retrograde. Now, you can't just be dreamers of dream. You should also be man and woman of action. Act. A lifelong resolve to act with commitment. And then, Mr. Krishna Kushorji was talking of value-based commitment. Values. You must have in your thinking, in your thought process, in your speech, in your conduct, in your action, mansa, vacha, karmana. Value. You cannot afford to slip even for a split second. I'm heading an institute. Last week we had a meeting. And it works. Of course, I would head an institute which works for the welfare of the not so privileged. And Diwali is coming, so they said all the employees here should get the increment, the bonus, some increase in the salary. Fine, yes, of course, why not? They gave me a list of all the employees. So I said, I don't see the name of the invisible man. Where's the name of the invisible man? Now, who's the invisible man, they said. I said, the invisible man is the most visible man. He is the one who comes early in the morning, cleans your toilets. He is the one who comes early in the morning, dusts your desk, cleans your room, prepares everything beautifully for you before you come. He is visible through the cleanliness that he has done. But he is invisible in his identity. Why have you forgotten him? Why this slip? Where is your commitment? So we cannot afford to slip even for a split second if we are dreamers of dreams. An action. The action must be commensurate with our end. identification of means with the end. It's a long journey. I don't know where our goal is. My father was not able to find. The generation before him, which existed, did not find. I don't know when I'll find, but it's a long journey. And the journey itself should be gratifying and satisfying and fulfilling. We should have no regrets about the journey. So the journey must match the destination. These are the attributes of a leader, according to me. Now you would say, you must be thinking in your mind, these are the things we have already read. We know about them. You have not said anything new? The truth and non-violence is also something which is not new. It was in the book for a long time, for ages. And we all knew about it. Till Gandhi found it and gave it his leadership and applied successfully, applied truth and non-violence which hitherto had existed only in holy religious scriptures. He, the great leader, applied it successfully to the hard ground of politics for the first time and uprooted the mightiest empire the world has ever seen. That's a leader. That's a leader. And we collect here today with the resolve to uproot poverty. Death is a sad word. But there are two deaths I would welcome and rejoice in. Death of poverty and death of caste system in our country. I would want poverty to vanish and caste system to become non-existent. There's a direct link between poverty and Dalit. An overwhelming number of the poor are Dalits. And also there is a very close relationship between poverty, Dalits, and illiteracy. It has been found that those who do not have access to literacy, leave alone education, are the poorest. Education gives respect, dignity, status, confidence, opportunities. I would like to quote the example of my maternal grandfather, my Nanaji. He wanted to be a doctor. This was in the 60s of the 19th century. He was born. He wanted to be a doctor. He didn't have the means. So he started stitching caps in a tailor's shop. and somehow managed to get admission in Prince of Wales Medical College in Patna. He himself lived in Allahabad, but that was the oldest medical college in India. He became a doctor, joined the British Army, and was awarded the Victoria Medal by Viceroy Lansdowne for his services in the Chinlushai War of 1889. All that became possible because of education. He rose and he helped others to rise. Later, of course, he was a renowned doctor. He also was a social reformer. There's an interesting side to it, that in those days, about 150 years ago, a doctor's profession was considered a dirty profession. So only the so-called untouchables, especially the leather workers, entered that profession. Today, things have changed. It has come a full circle. Now it's one of the most noble and prestigious professions, and it is a scheduled caste which is really resented in that profession. Now, because he got this opportunity through education, look what happened. He died in 1930, a year after his death. For some reason, it has nothing to do with him, for some reason there was a communal riot in Kanpur where he had lived. His children were in the house. They were expecting the mob to attack, so they were prepared with broken bottles and stones and some lathi, including my mother, to face the mob. They kept waiting. The mob never came. So next morning they found out, they wanted to know what happened, because they had all written themselves off, and they were very happy that they were still surviving, so they wanted to know how. Then they found out that the mob did enter that lane, but 2 or 3 people in the mob said, that is Dr. Birbal's house, his children live there, and he has treated us. The mob returned. It's impossible that in a communal riot, a frenzied mob, a crazy mob out to kill would return halfway. But that was his leadership, although he had died. He had stood by those people, so they stood by him. The leader must command that kind of respect. You see, education opens the door, paves the way. My father would have been an agricultural laborer, like most of his friends, had he not received education. His father died when he was 6 years old. In the first half of the last century, in a in a very backward rural part of Bihar. But he knew, my grandfather knew the value of education because he himself was a proclaimed saint of a reformist sect. And he told my grandmother to promise that after his death, she would give high education to their 6-year-old son. And she fulfilled that promise. She was illiterate. She was a widow. She was a village woman of very limited means. Yet, she sent him to school. She sent him to town school. She sent him to Banaras Hindu University. She sent him to Calcutta University. That is what I call the woman power. If a woman gets determined, she can do anything. And then my father rose. And when I say he rose, I don't mean that because he occupied high positions in the country. When I say he rose, I say that he chose to become the freedom fighter so that one day his country would be free and he will have the opportunity to open the door and pave the way for people like him. So this is what education does. There are many, many people who have understood the value of education and have worked hard to bring about social and attitudinal change in the society. I hold them in admiration and high reverence. I feel humbled before their stupendous work. And if I stand here today, it is because they have worked then. Education is a vehicle of social change. It transforms the society. It should. If it doesn't, they see something seriously wrong with it. I was just telling, I met an educationist, a very eminent educationist, just when I entered the hall. And I said it is my priority to visit the educational institutions in my country. Just 2 months back, I visited the Christ University in Bengaluru, the Mysore University in Mysore, the Calcutta University, just the beginning of this last year. The top universities of our country, with the best of faculty, world-class faculty, world-class infrastructure. And I also visit a school in some backward area of our country which just has one room, and the children study under a tree where girls don't come because there are no toilets. And if there are toilets, because as MP from my MP fund, one of my priorities was to get toilets made in the schools. Wherever I got toilets made, later I got reports which was very disturbing that those toilets were getting cleaned by the scheduled caste students studying in those schools. What do you do to the education system? What is wrong with it? We have to seriously think. when I find that so many of the educated have no qualms about exploiting the poor. I get very worried when I meet the educated, and so many of them believe in the caste system and discriminate against Dalits. I'm extremely disturbed when so many of the educated I meet take dowry and have little respect for women. Yet, there is no alternative to education. If anything which will transform the society, it will be education. We who are sitting here, we have to attack where the rot is in the education. Because it's education alone which will change the mindset, the thinking, the thought. Quality education, primary education. There should be so much emphasis on primary education. That's a foundation. And parity in education. Value-based education. We've lost our values. Every day, what is happening every day? I open the newspaper and I keep my fingers crossed. I hope I don't have to read about women getting ill-treated, the worst of treatment. I hope I don't have to read about Dalits getting ill-treated, the worst inhuman treatment. But God never listens. And we don't change our mindset. So thank you so much. I always wonder why I get invited to by people to give speeches, because I never really have nice things to say. And the same has happened today. I thought, when I came, I said, I'm not going to say anything which will hurt anyone or disturb anyone. I'll just bring a smile to everyone's face. But I'm sorry, I've shaken you too much. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, ma'am, for that inspiring address and showing us your understanding in education and leadership. I would like to invite Ms. Yrene Tamayo to give a few words. I would like to introduce ma'am. She's a managing director of CNS Global Advisors. She has had 20 years of experience in international business, finance, and management consultancy, and various other industries.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I have spoken to politicians, business leaders, and I'm honored to talk to you from the bottom of my heart. The young, aspiring leaders that will have the future responsibility of continue the evolution of the world. And that is a challenge, a big challenge in front of all of you. Today, the world is more interconnected than ever. I can see all of you have a cell phone, and some of you are using it. And with that cell phone, your voice can be heard. You can be loud. You can reach more than we were able at your age. And that's power. Over the past month, I thought, what is it that I'm going to talk to you about? And I prepared a speech. I wanted to be truthful and get to you. But over the past 2 days, I decided not to use the speech and just talk to you. And you guys inspired me, and thank you very much, Chief Gori, for inviting me. when we met in Wharton, I was overwhelmed by the kids that went to the competition, the financial literacy competition. What an amazing work. Those kids were impressive. What impressed me the most was the passion. And that passion is what changed things. That passion is what drives the world. And that's what I've been seeing here in just a couple of days. You're all passionate. My talk is going to be about how you're going to achieve that, be citizens for change, but how you can do it effectively. As a manager, as an entrepreneur, I believe in effective management. I believe in delivery. I believe in executing. I don't understand, no, that's not in my DNA. My DNA is yes. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I can achieve it. Yes, it can be done. No is a word that is not in my vocabulary. When my kids come to me and say, no, I cannot do it, I will challenge them and I will kick them until I hear a yes. At least I try. And the question is, what is it that I'm going to try? Because you all want to be entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurship is about profitability. It's about money. You have to be good entrepreneurs, you have to make money. But at the same time, it's not only translated to money. You also have to be responsible. If you want to become leaders, you have to be social responsible. You have to have impact. And can you achieve that? That's a good question. And yes, it can be achieved. You can be profitable and you can be social responsible. And create companies that can be social sustainable. And you all can become, and you're in the training to become philanthropreneurs. And that's the basis for a good leader that will transform, that will have impact. And that's what I've seen over the past couple of days. 200 and some kids that will become the next philanthropreneurs, that will have that in their DNA from the get-go, that will be social responsible and will transform. And so if the answer is yes, how can I acquire that knowledge? Is that knowledge just in the books, in college, in your textbooks, or that knowledge is somewhere else that I can also get that knowledge from? And the answer again is yes. There's people outside that could be your mentors. There's people out there that can help you. You have to look for them. And you have to understand or to look for the like-minded people that will guide you through the path of being a philanthropreneurs, to make money, but also be responsible. And in that path, those mentors, they're out there, will be with you if you have that passion, if you have that vision, if you're really believe in what you're doing and that you can create a change, that you can transform your society, your region, your city, or the world. There's large corporations, they have a lot of corporate social responsible programs. Yes, they do. But there are also organizations like this one. I'm very honored to belong to two associations, two organizations that are looking to impact the world. Eisenhower Fellowship and also Knowledge at Wharton. And their job is amazing. We look to transform, we look to inspire, and we look to do something, one young leader at a time. And by doing so, we strongly believe that you guys can change. Now, I wanted to share with you my story, because the only thing that I can give to you is how do I become a field entrepreneur. And I'm a Venezuelan. I grew up in Venezuela. I live in the US, but I grew up in a very difficult society. It's male-dominated. There's a lot of challenges. And for women, like in any other place in the planet, there was a lot of challenges. How do I become successful? How do I have impact? How can I achieve something? I grew up in a family of scholars. My father, he was the president of the International Society of University of Columbia and Rectum. I'm very attached to India. I've been coming here since I'm 10 years old. And my father was always looking to impact others, to teach. He was a professor. He was an innovator. And he inspired me and always told me that the only limitations here are in our heads. They don't exist. So at some point in my life, I thought that I wanted to become a teacher. But teaching what? I don't like medicine. I like business. I like to make money. But I want to become a teacher. And I started my path, and I said, well, then I have to go to college. I have to get a master's. And I went to college, I got my first master's. And I said my first because I'm a professional student. I've been studying all my life. 2 months ago, I finished another master's. So studying, by the way, is a process. You're always studying something. You're learning something from somebody, you're studying. It doesn't stop. And if it stops for you, then something's wrong. So you always have to keep acquiring knowledge. So during my path, I said, well, but in order to connect with others or to teach, I think I have to be successful. And to be successful, I have to deliver. There's no other way. I have to deliver what I said, and my voice has to be heard. I want to be heard. And in a male-dominated society, I said, well, the path is just school. The path is being the best in what I am by being competitive, by having a lot of knowledge, book knowledge, and educational knowledge. Yes, and that was great. That's fantastic. And that took me to one step, to here. But still, I needed to become street smart. How do I become street smart? I don't know. But there's nothing to stop me if I don't want to be stopped. The ones that stop is the ones that want to be stopped. We have the limitations. We believe that we have barriers. It's in our heads that we cannot achieve, that we cannot do great things. But yes, we can do it. It doesn't matter if you're a man, a woman. We are all human beings. We are all individuals. And I went further ahead, and I read one book once that talks about a mental board of directors. And it caught my attention. I said, wow, board of directors in your head. So, but in order to do that, you needed to understand those potential mentors in your board. So I started reading, of people in history that could inspire me. And I found Napoleon, found Churchill, and I found other people that when I had a problem, I went to them. And strategy, I went to Churchill. That was my guy. Okay? But I was fortunate enough to have mentors during my life. And at that time, the mentorship programs didn't exist. And the word was not even in vogue. This was successful individuals that I seek for help and ask them questions. But my DNA is I have to be constant. It's in my DNA. I wanted to achieve. So I kept asking questions, and I kept coming back. And it didn't matter. It didn't really matter if that was a challenge or if it was difficult to reach out to them. I tried, and I kept trying, and I kept trying for a very long time. And they taught me a lot. They guide me. And at some times, I even cried because their words were very harsh. The words were, you have to do this and this and that, or you should consider X, Y, and Z. And it was difficult, but I heard them. And I not called them once to ask them one thing. I kept them for life. And as of today, they're still my mentors. 10 years ago, I decided to have a board of mentors. And these 3 individuals that were mentoring me during my life, I asked them, would you mind if I make this a little bit more formal? I want to be able to reach out to you every 3 months, discuss certain issues with you, and take action. And it was fantastic. They love it. They love the idea. So they're still with me, and they still mentor me. So learning is not just in the books. It was through their stories. I learned through their failures. I learned through their successes. And you all can become mentors today, not tomorrow, today. You can teach the ones the ones that are coming behind you. So the take for me is that life is a journey of knowledge. Is not one master's, is not one thing. You guys have to keep studying. You have to keep being educated and to be competitive in the world. You have to create companies that are also responsible. And if you do so, you're going to be successful. When I was working in my last private equity company, we invested in hotels, real estate hotels. And I was very passionate. I'm very passionate for real estate. Very, very passionate. And I went to a potential investor, and I was explaining to him, I had only 30 minutes to deliver my message. And I went to him and I said, I want to talk to you about hospitality. I want to talk to you about why I want you to be my investor. I said, we create jobs. We can transform societies. We can improve the GDP, but we also create small and medium companies. We foster new innovations, but we also are strong believers that we can educate people and create primary jobs. And he looked at me and said, Yrene, I haven't heard the opportunity, but I want to know about you and your team. And the opportunity, just send it to me by email. I'm pretty sure that you're not going to waste my money. The money and the IRR will be there because you care so much about what you do. You believe so much in what you can achieve that I know that the investment is there. So my word to all of you is look for those mentors. Create responsible companies. You can do it and you can become the next generation of leaders. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. I would now like to introduce Ms. Zamantungwa Khumalo, who is the executive producer at the talk radio station Power FM. She is the media director of the Sean Hub and Young World Ambassador. She has represented Africa in a number of conferences and participated in the Young Global Leaders Innovation and Immersion in Africa. I would like to invite you now.
Thank you so much. I'm sure it's been such a long day. Before we start, I'd like all of you to stand. Now, as loud as you possibly can, I'd like you to all shout, "I'm a leader." On the count, I'll count it down this time. And this time around, let's be a bit louder. 1, 2, 3. Okay, a little bit louder. 1, 2, 3. Perfect, you can take a seat. Now, when I was about 11 or 12, so in my pre-teens, I realized that I was a girl. Now, don't get me wrong, I knew I wasn't a boy, and I definitely knew that there was a difference between boys and girls. But in my pre-teens, I came to realize what being a girl actually meant. Now, I have an older brother, and this will make you understand a little bit more than how I came to this realization. My older brother was he's 2 years older than me. He was the quintessential cool big brother that we often see depicted in movies. He was smart, he was funny, he was witty, he was an incredible storyteller. He would often walk into a room and own it. He could tell a story and have people eating out of the palm of his hands. And in many ways, as I was growing up, I wanted to be like him. I mean, who wouldn't? You walk into a room and people sort of gravitate towards you. You're funny, you're smart, he had lots of friends, and I really did want to be like him. And in some ways, I've become like my brother, but of course I'm just smarter than him. Now, it was in these preteen, or rather it was during my preteens that I realized that I got punished for characteristics that my brother was often praised for. I noticed how instead of being praised or being, titled as somebody who's got leadership potential, I was called a know-it-all, I was called bossy, and often didn't have as many friends as my older brother actually did. And it was at that time when I realized that the rules aren't the same for girls as they are for boys. And you can imagine how daunting that can be when you're just about to enter high school and you think to yourself, but if the playing field isn't equal, then what's going to happen to you for the rest of your life? Now, as I was getting ready for this conference, I did quite a lot of reading around, the Millennial Development Goals, and particularly around the third MDG, which is around promoting gender equality and empowering women. And I had initially written a really great speech that had quite a lot of statistics around quantifying gender parity, not just in my home country in South Africa, but Africa as a whole, as well as the rest of the global south. For example, just 2 days ago, McKinsey released their Women Matters Africa report, which indicates that Africa has made great strides in terms of diversity in leadership in the last decade. Now, according to the same report, about 24% of parliamentarians on the African continent are women, with 22% of members of cabinet being women, and 5% of CEOs in Africa are women. Now, this is a percentage above the global standard of 4%. Another McKinsey report, because I thought I'd bring it closer to home, and home being here in India, was their Power of Parity, Advancing Women's Equality in India, which shows that India's global parity score, back then I think it was in 2015, is 0.48, where a score of 1 is the most ideal score. So essentially, the score indicates that India's gender parity is that India has extremely high levels of gender inequality. Now, I really did want to, at some point, focus a lot on the data, not just back home, but also in India, because there are so many similarities that one can draw between the two countries. But instead, I really opted against numbers. I mean, I studied humanities, so a part of me tries to avoid numbers as much as I can. I did economics for one semester, and I didn't like it, but I suspect it's because of my then professor. Instead, I wanted to share what gender equality and empowering women means for me as a young woman, and particularly me as a young woman who's a millennial. Now, I'm 26 years old, and I've had the privilege of going all across the world. I've spoken in 5 of the 7 continents. I'm quite hacked that I've yet to go to Antarctica. I think I must find some other expedition that I can go there for. And my understanding of gender parity or gender equality is very different is very different from what the numbers say, because sometimes numbers don't quite quantify what we often feel. So for example, for me, gender equality and empowering women has a lot to do with the messages that we tell young girls. When you go to the cinema, you walk into a movie, I think one of the latest superhero movies is the Captain America, or if you watch any of the Avengers movies, which I'm a huge fan of, you tend to find that superheroes are always men. Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, and in their overwhelming numbers. So for me, gender equality is being able to walk into a cinema and know that I'll also find female lead characters who look just like me. And not just like me in terms of my race, but me as in they are women. And it's not just men who are superheroes and women get to be their sidekicks. Gender equality, and in this world of sort of being tech savvy and always being plugged in as a young millennial, is me having an iPhone that will have emojis that also represent women in a certain way. So I don't know if many of you are aware, but on the 1st of this month, Apple actually released a press statement saying that they've added emojis where women are also athletes and they are professionals. So now you've got the emoji where you've got like a doctor, because in the previous version of the iOS, it used to be only a nurse and the doctors and the other professional services were male. So I want to have a phone and know that I'll get emojis that look just like me, and where I'm not just depicted as a nurse, but I'm also depicted as a doctor. Gender equality for me is, and particularly to my 13 and 14-year-old self, is knowing that when I show qualities of leadership, when I'm able to walk into a room, command authority, when I'm able to debate or argue whatever issue it is that we're talking about, I won't be called bossy, I won't be called a know-it-all, but I'll be called badass like my big brother was. And for me, that was so important, because it was at that age that I could have very easily retreated and become shy and not sort of grown up to be the young woman that I'm slowly becoming. But somehow, living in a household with a big brother who was larger than life made me think and made me believe that that was normal. I genuinely thought that's how everyone was. So you can really imagine my horror when I got into high school and I was chastised for being that way. And so today at 26, I hold a leadership position at work. I'm the youngest person in management. And it's been quite an interesting journey, even to my management role, because the chastising didn't stop in my preteens. I think even as you grow up, as you get older, as a young woman, you still get told negative messages when you're authoritative, when you're assertive, and when you stand up for what you believe in. You don't get high fives and brownie points for being as articulate, for being as smart, funny, or witty as your male counterparts. And it really is unfortunate, because when you look at any gender numbers, be it in private or public sector, you tend to find that as you rise up the ranks, there are fewer and fewer women in between. And oftentimes, we don't ask why. And when we do, we don't realize that the little messages that we tell little girls when they're 7, when they're 13, when they're 25 and getting promoted is what holds us back, or is what stops us from putting our hand up when there's that promotion, or when you're asked to be a team leader in whatever team that there is out there. And so today, I really wanted to challenge all of you. I wanted to challenge the women in the room, the young women in the room, whether you're in high school, whether you're in varsity, who will one day be going off and starting work, and who perhaps have also been called either bossy or a know-it-all, or you think you know too much, that you're okay just the way you are. that your smartness, your wittiness, your braininess is not a disadvantage, and that perhaps the world needs to catch up to just how badass we are. I want to challenge you to continue raising your hand up and letting it stay up, because it's not our fault that the world is not ready for women who are as empowered as we are. But I also want to challenge the men in the room, because the reality is it's oftentimes the men who are decision makers in organizations that we find ourselves in. So I want to challenge you to say, the next time you want to call a smart woman who's assertive in a meeting bossy, rather say she's got leadership potential. And if there really is something fundamentally wrong with what she's saying, don't punish her for something that you would praise your male counterparts for being. Because the only way that, or rather one of the ways that we can begin to lessen the gender gap is by telling both men and women that there's absolutely nothing wrong with women in leadership, and that if anything, that should be normal. I want to end off with the quote that's on my email signature, and oftentimes, people ask me where I got it and how it came about, and as soon as they slowly start to get to know me, they realize why that quote is so passionate to me, and why in a way I sort of use it as a mantra for my life. And it goes, we need to move beyond the idea that girls can be leaders and create the expectation that they should be. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the esteemed ladies on our panel, 3 different points of view. I think one's head is reeling with the amount of information we have gathered. Thank you for making the time and sharing your stories with us. Whether it is Yrene or Meira ji or Zamantungwa, each of them has been an inspiration. And all the young girls who are in the audience today, I hope you have taken note of it. And from my own life experience, I can tell you that I've been through the same experiences. And if I'm standing here today, it is because of all the challenges that one has to overcome. I was a late bloomer because in the true Indian tradition of my times, I finished my undergrad after begging to do so, and I was married off to what was considered suitable. And then once I was married, then it was babies and home, and you were not expected to do anything else. But I was fortunate enough to have mentors who encouraged me to teach, to do my master's after I started teaching. And one day when I was studying for my master's, my husband found at 2 a.m. I was not there, came to look for me and found me fast asleep on my books on my desk. And that was a life-changing experience, because it's then that he realized that I had hopes and dreams and aspirations and supported me fully, and that's why I'm here today. But you have to stand up and you have to fight. And you girls are so lucky. You have so much more that's in front of you. You've got parents who will support you. Take that opportunity in your hands. And it's you who can transform. And I like to quote Gandhi ji here. Educate a man, you educate an individual. Educate a woman, you educate a family. So the future of this world, with no disrespect to the men around, the future of the world lies in the hand of all these young girls in our audience. And once again, thank you so much. In fact, I could empathize with a lot of what Meira ji said. I think we belong to more or less the same generation. And we would like to say a very big thank you to tGELF for being here and sharing your thoughts with us, and a token of our appreciation. Thank you, Meira ji. And thank you, Yrene. And thank you, Zamantungwa. Thank you so much. Please give them a warm applause for sharing their thoughts with us. Thank you so much. Come, Meira.
tGELF, leading the change.